we should say, theory of color-confrontation and racism. You call racism white supremacy. To be sure, a provocative and controversial theory on skin color and oppression. Well, I'm ready. So is this mostly but not exclusively white audience. Let them have it, Doctor. How? Boy, oh boy, you need an escort to get out of your speeches?
No, now, let me just give you a little background. This paper was written approximately in 1969 and presented in 1970. It was written for a group of black psychiatrists who were looking at racism.
Yeah.
It was also written because as a psychiatrist and working in a hospital trying to treat black people and white people, but recognizing that the majority of the problems that black patients had in a psychiatric hospital, when you took a history, you would run smack into racism. Okay. So I knew I had to understand racism to help solve the mental health problems of black people. Okay. So out of my brain computer, putting in the question, why do we see this behavior? Why have we seen it for hundreds of years? So I thought about these two things, basically two facts, that even though the white population says that people of color are minorities, that it is the white population that is the minority, the minority on the planet.
That's the reality you're saying.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That in spite of the fact that black people, non-white people have heard over and over again, you're genetically inferior because you are non-white. That in reality, white skin is a genetic recessive status, not as said by Cress Welsing.
What is
you see? Meaning that if
meaning that if you and I were to have a baby, the baby would have color, and you make the contribution and I don't.
That white
so
plus
what?
colored. Well, wait a minute. It's not Cress Welsing that is concerned about the disappearance of white. Ben Wattenberg just wrote a book, The Birth Dearth. There have been multiple articles in the newspaper talking about the decline of Western populations.
Yeah, here's the Washington Post, just to name one. We are a depopulation bomb, the withering of the Western world. Here, incidentally, this was the percentage of the West's population in 1900, the turn of this century, about 30%. This is where we'll be less than 10% in the year 2075. Here's where we are about today, 15. So we're not having babies.
So whites are not having babies, and there is the concern about white genetic annihilation. In other words, I look at, this is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday holiday, and people will say, well, here's a man who talked about love. Yeah. Why was he killed? And I say that the deeper logic is, what if all black and white people and non-white people and white people love? What would happen to white people? White would disappear. You see, just mix all of the people on the planet up together.
In other words, if race didn't matter, or if color didn't matter, it follows with the jet planes.
No, I'm not saying if it didn't matter. I'm saying that indeed if there was a mingling of all of the people, because
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, fine.
Absence of prejudice.
The ability, no, wait, don't confuse what I'm saying. I'm saying that if we mixed all of the people presently on the planet, stirred them up,
the white freckle-faced people would be gone.
Genetic recessive status would disappear. And that if I did a survey and everybody didn't have to, face anybody, if I said how many people who are white want their children to be white, want their grandchildren to be white, want their great-grandchildren to be white, want their great-great-grandchildren to be white. And I've gone all over the country in England and asked this question. Yeah. Everybody wants the children and the generations to remain white. Yeah. If you do, then you have to do something to make sure that that happens. And I say that what the thing is that is done.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you're watching me from. Now, the year 1998, there was a show called the Donahue Show, and I wasn't there, but when I watched the video, 1998, Dr. Cress Welsing attended the Donahue Show, and the part of the discussion that was so much poignant, it was that she tried to represent black people, and she tried to demystify the importance of blackness, and she wanted it to sink in the mind of white audience, because for the longest time they've been walking around with lies in regards to black people. But when she came to the Donahue Show, she shut their mouth with truth, and gave them evidence, because there are some things that you cannot hide when the truth comes out. So Dr. Cress Welsing is one of the America's black psychiatrists of the late 1980s, and she was so much important in making us understand, the black history in terms of genes and race and everything, and how blacks and whites correlate. It was so much important even when she got into the demographic part of white people. And so this becomes so much important aspect in black history even today as we celebrate Dr. Cress Welsing, because whatever she offered back in the 80s still serves us still today, because the facts that she shared still stands with black people, and it will be used with kids who will also come to learn black history, because these are poignant part of black history that we all need to learn. So you understand that Dr. Cress Welsing's appearance on the Phil Donahue Show in 1988 stands as one of the most intellectual, provocative moments of the late 20th century American television, precisely because she introduced ideas that challenged the dominant racial narratives in public, unsheltered forum. So, our arguments were not framed as emotional appeal, but as systemic theory, grounded in history, grounded in psychology, grounded in biology and power analysis. Now, what made our presentation poignant was not only what she said, but where she said it, on a mainstream platform, largely accustomed to hearing a black woman articulate a comprehensive theory that directly interrogated white power and behavior. Brothers and sisters, buckle up for this video. I'm your host and presenter Tech Stories. I'll be back with my thoughts in regards to this. So stay tuned. I'll be back. Let's watch the video.
And particularly in relationship to black non-whites, because we have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation.
Because you're the blackest.
Because we, right.
The most color.
Right. We have this ability to produce melanin pigment. We have more of it than anybody else. And so the most pressure is on black people. As a matter of fact, the black people learn, all non-white people over the world learn. If you're black, stay back. If you're yellow, you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, mellow, white, right. I can go to England and the people can just say the same thing. Doesn't matter whether, if you go to the Philippines, because there has been a confrontation of brown with white. Everybody knows the more pigment you have, the more pressure that is on you.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand why. I said the why is for the purpose of white genetic survival.
All right. And you're saying that blacks have no similar hidden subconscious anxiety about their blackness being undermined by the presence of white?
We don't have that fear. And I think that this is something that is not understood. You see, in other words, if I don't worry about, as a matter of fact, under white supremacy, the non-white people try to get lighter. You see, because the less pigment you have, the less threat you are to white, and so the greater opportunity that you have.
Yeah. The mass inability of whites to live and attend school in the presence of non-whites, manifested by the patterns of black and white housing and education throughout this country, and indeed throughout the world, is seen, according to your thesis, in terms of the color confrontation thesis, as the apparent total psychological discomfort experienced by whites in situations in which they must daily face their color inadequacy when they confront their neighbors of color. You go on to...
I predicted. Look, I wrote that in 1970. I said you cannot have integrated housing. You cannot have integrated schools.
You still believe that?
Well, I mean, the evidence. I always look at the evidence. If Mr. Black and Mr. White live next door to each other, they have the same job, the same income, the same car, the same furniture. Yeah. They both walk out of the house in the morning. Good morning, Mr. Black. Good morning, Mr. White. Yeah. But Mr. White is still looking, but you've got something that I don't have.
You're saying he's saying that subconsciously.
Saying, right.
Now, wait a minute. All right, we'll give you a chance in just a moment.
Wait a minute.
Now, wait a minute.
Let's look at this.
They're nice people. You're really going to like them, I promise you. You know. Once in a while, you know, a couple of them stop before they come up here, and you got to keep an eye on them.
Let's look at this. You
know, go ahead, look at it.
Very fortunately.
Now, let me just understand this. See, the reason they're groaning is, you know, that's an awful bad rap to take. Let me just, arrogantly try and reword what I think you're saying. Now, don't get crazy. Let me see.
Please, I'm
Mr. White is looking at Mr. Black, and he's not consciously saying, don't you dare.
Not consciously.
So it is under here.
Not consciously. I mean, we could go on for 3 hours. Not consciously.
All right. All right.
Okay. I am saying that this behavior is at the subconscious level, and there's a lot of evidence. For example, just on Saturday, the New York Times had an article talking about the percentage of people who want a tan. 66%. I have the article if anybody wants to look at it later. 66% of white adults think they look better with a tan. 70% of white adolescents think they look better with a tan. What do white people? Ooh, I look so pale. Now, this is not something that Cress Welsing is putting on people. White females even say their ideal mate is who? Tall, dark, and handsome. Now, Phil, I mean...
Wait a minute. Just a minute. That whites do indeed desire to have colored skin can be seen by anyone at the very first signs of spring or summer, when they begin to strip off their clothes as many pieces as the law will allow, often permitting their skins to be burned severely in an attempt to add some color to their white, pale, colorless bodies, rendering themselves vulnerable to the dreaded skin cancer in the process. Most cosmetics also are seen as an attempt to add color to their skin. Such coloring makeup is even now being provided for the white male. Well, guess who has you-know-what on at this moment? And if you don't mind my saying so, I do. I put it on myself. I don't go to makeup. I have a shine on my nose I've got to take. But I feel better with a little color. And I've got the whitest skin in the whole neighborhood. I'm telling you, no kidding. I'm not bragging. I'm saying as a matter of fact.
This is not, my discussion is not about making fun of white people. My discussion is trying to explain behavior. See, people come to psychiatrists
I value your effort here.
Why am I doing this? For example, when I was a very small child, I wanted to understand why black men were lynched. I asked my grandmother and parents, why would this be done? And my grandmother gave a statement. She said something like, well, some people just want to act ugly. But that wasn't sufficient, you know, as a psychiatrist.
May I interrupt for just a moment? Here's the read on that, and I know you want to add to this or make it just a little more complicated. The black male was lynched and often castrated because of the white male fear of the black male's, the myth is the black male's extraordinary sexual capacity. So he was lynched by frightened white males who feared that if he ever got anywhere near the white women, that somehow the white male would be a Now, you want to add to that.
His sexual capacity, what are we talking about? I say that the fear is that the black male can cause white genetic annihilation. And this is why the attack on the genitals, there's no history in the world of any non-white men attacking white men's genitals. But why do white men feel the need to zero in on the black man's genitals and cut them off? Yeah. You see, and a lot of this is played out in symbolic behavior in this culture. For example, the culture says, keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Look at something that,
I'll get there to just 1 second.
See, look at something that people do not look at. Look at the game of billiards. See, the psychiatrist knows that through games we play out subconscious activity.
Yes, they do.
Okay, now look at this game. Here's a game with colored balls.
Yes.
All over the table.
And guess who gets to shoot the ball?
The white ball knocks all the colored balls under the table.
And often saves the black one.
And then the black ball, right.
Till last.
Till last.
Because there's a specialness about the black. Yeah. Let me, Dr. Welsing, now, you're not surprised at the response of this audience. Just a couple of things here for the sake of our conversation. First of all, we welcome your contribution. That is, for what it's worth, I certainly do. Which does not mean, therefore, that I or this audience necessarily agree with everything you say. But let me tell you what I think is important. I don't think we've asked enough questions about this thing called racism, which has, in my opinion, the capacity to bring us down as a nation, if not, certainly not only here, but in many parts of the world. It is in the American bloodstream, and it's especially manifest here. So good for you trying to figure this out, because it's my, no kidding, it's my opinion, not enough smart people are really speaking to the, we run away from this. Another point you make, you think this, the token black is an effort to assuage this hidden feeling that we have? Is that, how do you explain?
Well, the token black, I mean, you might say that was under pressure. Do you see? That you have to, the civil rights movement, you have to include some non-white people. But every effort is made to move around that. Mm-hmm. And I understand, I mean, it's tragic, mm-hmm. and it's injustice. Yeah. And I'm not just saying here, I'm saying all over this planet, whether we're talking about South Africa. And see, one important example that people do a lot of surface talking about is the Holocaust. See how quiet it is? Well, the Holocaust in Germany was because what? Because the Semites of the Jewish religion were said by the Europeans to be non-white people. The Holocaust didn't just occur.
So you think that there's
Wait a minute, do you see what I'm saying? If we have denial going on about this, all you have to do is look at what the Nazis are saying today. What the Klan is saying today.
So you're saying anti-Semitism has the same root?
If you read Hitler, if you read all the documentation...
Anti-Semitism has pigmentation as it's under the...
Had to do with the Semites. Look at the part of the world that the Semites come out of. I say that the word Semite comes from the Latin prefix semi, meaning half. It's a word like mulatto. It means a combination of black African women, Greek and Roman soldiers, and you had that mixture. 2,000 years of continuing mixture in Europe made a lighter group of people that were still considered to be non-white.
When you use lighter and you say recessive, and you use the word recessive gene, I think I know what that means.
This is not my language. This is the language of formal genetics.
That's true. But you equate recessive with inferior. Now, just hang on one second.
Go ahead.
I don't claim to be the first one to bring this to your attention, but aren't you dangerously close to Joseph Mengele with all this stuff?
No.
How about Shockley?
No. Wait a minute. No. What I am trying to do is explain some very, very important behavior on the planet that other people have shied away from dealing with. Yeah. Do you see? And to say that because you talk about it, it's just like if somebody studied tuberculosis and say, well, are you against the tuberculosis organism? No, you're trying to understand it.
Well, but you do bring judgments on me. So when you equate recessive with inferior, that's not science, that's
wait a
judgment.
Minute. No, I'm not, that's not what I say. I say that the people who are feeling an absence of color, that they look at themselves in that way. And they have a response to therefore say, if I can get in charge of all these non-white people, then I am going to be superior. So nobody is uncomfortable in the white collective with all the white superiority that goes on every day. Look at television. White. Wait a minute.
All right, I got it. Hold on a minute. Look at, all right, hang on just 1 second.
Oh, my goodness.
Hold 1 second. There are a couple of things which you, listen, there are people out there who say, look at all the progress we're making.
Look at the Urban League report.
I am not one of those people.
Fine.
Nevertheless, there are examples of integrated communities. Truly are.
But see, the answer is not a question of are there a few black people living where white people live. The issue is that if we are going to have peace on the planet, there has to be justice. And white supremacy, where you have the tiniest number of people on the planet holding down the vast majority of people on the planet, happens to be the highest form of injustice. Yeah. And so if we are going to have peace, see, I'm not talking about destroy white people, I'm saying, but we do have to eliminate white supremacy. And I say in the back of that paper, the challenge to white behavioral scientists, help people who classify themselves as white become comfortable with their color and comfortable with their minority status, so that they are not feeling negative and then mistreating all of the people that they say are, what, non-white.
Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here, Phil. Hi. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm white. I can't believe that she's saying that the white people would like to be, I'm assuming she's saying black, not of a darker skin color, but black. I myself am very, very fair-skinned, brunette with green eyes, and I have no desire to be dark.
Why?
Why? I like my color. I was attractive enough that I went to modeling school. I do admit that I do use blush. I do not use blush to, as you say, give myself color. I use it to accent my cheekbones, give myself better appearance.
Do you sunbathe?
No, I don't. And as a matter of fact, I love the beach, and my husband and I, when we've gone to the Bahamas a few times, when we have, I have to wear sunscreen. You know, I don't turn tan.
Okay.
I get red.
Right.
And I grew up on the beach, and I have a minimal tan. But
You see, but I'm asking,
Well, hang on one second.
I want to be clear. Is she saying, I want to be dark, but I don't want to be black?
Yes.
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 And
So you'd like to be a little darker than you are?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm very pleased with my color.
Well, then why do you put rouge on?
To accent my cheekbones.
Highlight the cheekbones.
But why do you suntan? Because the American Dermatological Society would prefer...
She doesn't, probably for that reason.
But she goes to the beach.
She does go to the
I
beach.
go to the beach because I like the water.
I gotta go.
I like the water. I grew up in California.
Let me try one more. Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
Hi. I'm also white, and I'm very comfortable with being white. I think that she's crazy to think that white people want to be black. You know, we might want to have a little color, but I wouldn't want the features of a black person. And as far as...
The what?
She does not want the features of a black person. Do you see, this is...
Hold on.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, in other words, that's racism, but pigmentation isn't?
Well, no, I'm saying that to say I wouldn't want to be, I mean, I can be happy who I am and not say something is negative about the other person.
Well, look, we've got a break here. Is there a, you know, one of the agonies here is half of this audience does not believe that they're racist.
Oh, wait, well, I
am not more than half.
Let me ask this.
You can't fix it if you don't know you have it.
But wait a minute, I want to ask.
How do you explain what's going on here in this country?
I want to say then, who is? That's like going to Germany. I went to Germany in 1957, and I wanted to live with German people and ask them, did they understand what they were doing?
Yeah.
You know, taking their neighbors away and burning them up. Did they understand what was happening? Yeah. Everybody that I talked to knew what was going on. They did nothing. But if you go and say, well, now, who believed what Hitler was saying? Nobody. Everybody says no. You see, every single person says, no, I didn't have anything to do with it.
The people who are saying they're not racist, you're accusing them of not doing it.
No, I'm not accusing. What I would do is, if you have to take a break, is give my definition. You see, give my definition of what I say that racism is.
A functional definition of racism, white supremacy, which you identify with white supremacy, is therefore, for all practical purpose, as follows. The behavioral syndrome of individual and collective color inferiority and numerical inadequacy, which includes patterns of thought, speech, and action as seen in members of the white organization or race. And we'll be back in just a moment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think people are racism. Okay, there is a lot of people who do have that in them, but I think the majority of the people like people as they are. And if you're educated...
You mean you like your kind, you mean?
No. All kinds of people. It doesn't have to be your kind, because
so you
I can look at a person...
any of it? This thing we call racism?
No, because I live in Colonia, and we have a whole development of black people. Okay, and, well, wait, no, I went to school with them, okay, and I learned to deal with them. I think that if you learn to...
Them.
Well, we mixed as a group. In other words, we weren't different. We weren't treated different. We weren't treated different, so we were all one kind of
Hold
person.
your thought. You hang on a minute. What's the matter? What?
This study that was done in '69 and '70, I'd like to know what she's done lately to erase and eradicate racism and to improve
How do you feel
situations.
about what she's saying?
I don't care for it at all.
I want to just say that I feel I am a racist, but every black that calls Whitey a Whitey is also a racist. And I...
Wait a minute. Let me answer that. You see, within a family, people might call each other names. But when we come to the white people on the planet, the majority having organized themselves for white genetic survival, then when a white person can determine what is going to happen to a person of color, that is a difference, because then we're talking about a system of power that can say you can or you can't, or if I want to go back to Germany because people do a lot of talking about the Holocaust. When the Semites were told, put on this yellow star because you're not white and you can't go to the university and you have to live in the ghetto and you are going to be removed from your homes, that is power. It's not just a question of somebody saying, I don't like John, I don't like Betty. When you have the power to make it impossible for people to live a constructive existence, then that's a difference.
But what we're trying to figure out is why we want that power to do that to another person in the first place.
I said
and you're saying white people do it to people
for
of
white
color
genetic survival.
because they feel, huh?
I think it's a matter of economics more than anything else.
Well,
and if you're a fair person, you're a fair person. And if this, I don't care who is my neighbor. If they can afford to be my neighbor, if they are the same economic ability that our family have, then they're fine. They're welcome to be my neighbor.
But wait a
And
minute,
we'll be back. I'll give you a chance in just a moment. You know, we do study everything to death. Everything's studied. I mean, figure it out, we study it. Except racism, either whatever scholarship there may be about it, we seem to be running away from, or we're not attracting, our guest accepted, some of the big academics to this issue. You wanted to say.
I'd like to know why Jimmy the Greek had to be fired from CBS for his opinions about blacks, and she can come on national TV and give her opinions about white, and she's not going to get fired from her job. White people can't talk anymore. She got it, and then everybody fired. It's ridiculous. And now he has to go write apologies to all black.
Well, I was just going to, I don't think that you can equate what I'm saying to what he said. I mean, you might, and
Blacks are moving away from their own...
See, I'm not, let me say this, that I'm not surprised that, you know, what I'm saying might upset people. Now, if you just look, all of the studies that people who say they're white do on black people, the blacks this and studying the blacks that and studying this, saying this about blacks and saying, I mean, the literature is just packed.
But from a behavioral standpoint, I do not think
we have to have an explanation. See, that the Cress Theory, that's one person's idea. I challenge everybody in the audience to write about white supremacy behavior. What is your idea about it? Put your idea out there so that you can explain this very considerable behavior on the planet.
I'm not sure you're going to get the majority of the white community to agree that the majority of the white community is engaging in it.
But wait a minute, let me say this. See, I'm not here complaining about what people who classify themselves as white. I made an analysis. I said that basically I see that people who classify themselves are trying to survive genetically. And I am not saying you cannot do that. But I am going to say what it is, and I really advocate that non-white people on the planet stop expecting for white people to commit genetic suicide.
Doctor, are you aware that within your own culture you also have racism? In other words, my neighbors moved away from the blacks who were moving in next door to us, and so they wanted to move away in order to give their children a better education. I'm talking about Jersey City, where I am coming from.
What's your point?
And my point is that you also have racism within your own culture.
What are you saying is the racism?
In other words, blacks do not want to live among blacks. They have their own social order. In other words, if my doctor next door to me is black and he prefers not to live among the culture that's moving in to my neighborhood, this happened. I'm evidence of it. It happened many years ago.
Well, are you saying that let's say if you address people of Irish descent. If they move because they have a higher income, are you saying they're conducting racism against their own people? I think that you're clouding the issue. I think that you're clouding the issue about black and white.
Over here, please. I want to give you more time, and someday I'll be a czar, and I'll have all the time I want.
Yes, I do believe that there is a such thing as racism among black people, but I believe it's in response to white racism, as opposed to, you know, black people just want to go out and get white folks.
If you jump on my bones enough, I'm sooner or later going to call you names, or my kids are going to call you names.
It's self-preservation.
Yes.
I believe there's racism everywhere, but I think it's more like you're not used to people, you hang out with your own group, and...
That's true, but why is that? Dr. Welsing is offering here a kind of anthropological theory of racism, which has to do with our fear of, that is to say, white people's fear of their diminishing numbers. We're afraid we'll become extinct. She goes one step further to say that intermarriage scares us because it takes our whiteness away. And if everybody were free without all these terrible prejudices and fears, then it certainly, common sense would allow us to conclude that at some point down the line, no whiteness, that is to say, as we think about it in the West, would be left. And she is saying that deep down in here, unconsciously, we're scared to death of that. And that's why we've got black neighborhoods and white neighborhoods.
I disagree. I think you're scared just because people are different, and if you got to know them, you wouldn't be so scared. I don't think it's because we're afraid of being white.
Just for the moment, putting aside theories, and the good doctor is only a theory, I don't accept it as fact, and generalities, and putting this thing on a one-to-one basis, I turned during the, stop, I turned to this lady of color sitting next to me, and I said to her, I don't know about you, but I have never wanted to be black. I'm perfectly comfortable. I've had this white skin for...
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. You see, during those days when a black woman had a platform, first, it was not so much accepted because majority of people didn't see black women as strong. At least they didn't see them like that. But back in the late 80s, we are seeing Dr. Cress Welsing on the Phil Donahue Show. That's a big mainstream media that hosted majority of people, with people having debates in regards to this. While she was presenting in the video, I noted a couple of things that are really, really important and that I feel that we need to share so that we can all get to learn and understand all these concepts that are being talked about. First thing that I learned while I was watching the video was that, first, Dr. Welsing presented the foundational premise of the Cress Theory of Color-Confrontation. Her base argument was on that. Now, I understand that she argued that global white supremacy is not accidental, but a rational response by a numerical minority to perceived genetic and political vulnerability. I may explain. She asserts that people classified as white constitute a minority on a global scale, and that is the demographic reality, which produces a deep-seated anxiety about survival, about dominance, and about continuity. Right? So according to Welsing, racism is not primarily about hatred of black people, but about fear of non-white genetic dominance. So this reframing was radical because it inverted the common narrative that racism stems from ignorance or cultural misunderstanding. Instead, it is a calculated system of control which is embedded in survival psychology. I hope you get that. And the second thing that she also addressed that I noted was she emphasized that racism operates as a global system, not merely an American social problem. So on Donahue, Welsing repeatedly stressed that white supremacy manifests consistently across different societies. That is legal systems, that is culture, suggesting that a shared logic rather than isolated prejudice. Because she cited a pattern such as colonialism, apartheid in South Africa, segregation, and racial stratification as evidence of a coherent global structure designed to preserve white dominance. So this point was poisoned because it removed racism from the realm of personal morality and placed it squarely within the framework of international power relations and historical continuity. So I hope you understand that. So, right. On the third argument that she also gave, and I also noted it down, was that she argued that violence against Black people is functional and not accidental at all. So within the systems of white supremacy, she explained that lynching, police brutality, mass incarceration, and economic deprivation, all of these things were not just something that were random. All these things that you see that I've mentioned and she mentioned before were designed. It is functional. And so when sometimes we discuss the reasons why people usually see a dysfunction in the Black community, you have to understand that all these things were engineered. All these things were engineered to happen. And that's why they are happening the way they're happening today. Because all these are mechanisms of social control. Now, on the Donahue stage, she made it clear that violence, whether physical, whether psychological, or structural, it still serves to maintain racial hierarchy by instilling fear, limiting resistance, and normalizing Black suffering. So this assertion was particularly unsettling for mainstream audiences because it challenged the idea that Americans' racial violence was a deviation from its ideals rather than a product of them. So on my fourth point that I also noted down is that she introduced the concept of sexuality and reproductions, which are also central to our argument. They are central battlegrounds, if I'll call it like that. There are central battlegrounds in when we study racial power dynamics. I'm explaining. So Welsing argued that white obsession with regulating sex, that is through anti-miscegenation laws, media portrayals, moral panics, all this reflects anxiety about genetics, about genetic survival. So on Donahue, you understand that this idea was especially, they call it controversial, as she linked seemingly desperate phenomena such as pornography, hypersexuality of Black bodies, and moral policing to larger systems of racial control. So our point was not sensationalism, but structure, controlling reproduction as a way of controlling the future. And also on my fifth point that I noted down while I was watching the video was that Welsing went ahead and challenged the audience to reconsider the role of education and miseducation in the United States, because these all help in sustaining white supremacy. And listen, she argued that school systems, media, and religious institutions systematically obscure the realities of power and history, conditioning both white and Black people to misunderstand racism. Now, on the show, she was explicit that ignorance is not neutral. It is produced. This idea resonated sharply because it implicated institutions which often assumed to be benevolent or objective, revealing how knowledge itself can function as a tool of domination, right? So on my sixth observation is that she asserted that Black people's primary task is self-understanding rather than validation from white society. Now, Welsing emphasizes that liberation does not begin with integration or acceptance, but with accurate diagnosis. To the system one is navigating. Now, on Donahue, this message stood in contrast to popular civil rights rhetoric, which focused on moral appeals to white conscience. Because, sorry about that. I was holding my phone with my hands. Because she argued that survival strategy requires clarity, not coming together. It required collective discipline, not emotional dependence on oppressors' approval. It required self-realization, self-survival. Why was this poignant? This was poignant because it shifted responsibility inward without blaming Black people for their oppression. Get it that right. Now, and my last observation in what I saw was that Welsing tried to warn that denial of racial reality will produce psychological breakdowns and social instability among those invested in maintaining supremacy. She suggested that suppressing truth creates cognitive dissonance, creates fear and aggression, which eventually surfaces as social decay, violence, and moral confusion. Our presence on Donahue itself symbolized the tension. A calm, methodical presence on Donahue itself, methodical Black woman articulated uncomfortable truths while audiences visibly struggled to process them. So the poignancy lay in the contrast. Our composure versus the unease of society, which she confronted with a mirror it did not want to face. So brothers and sisters, please let me know what you think and feel about this video. I'm your host and presenter HDoc Stories, but until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.